we're live. It is Monday, December 20th, 2021, 5:04 p.m. It is one of those days where we have minor technical difficulties getting a guest on screen. We have one of our guests who is visible here, the great Maggie Caroline, but we do not have the other guest, Mr. Blue Eagle. And yes, for those of you who don't know, that is his real name. That is Pashtun for Blue Eagle. But we will have him here as soon as we can get him audible. And then we will get started. In the meantime, I want to share with you something that I am very proud of that we released today. It is the trailer for the new show that we are producing to be released on January 6th. Here is the link to it. And it is all about accountability in the post-1/6 era, which is to say 1 year since January 6th. And there have been a lot of efforts at accountability. There's been an impeachment. There's been 700 criminal trials. There have been...
Can we listen to it? Can I share it and listen to it?
Yeah, although we have to be careful in doing that. Can we actually make that happen? Can you
see that?
Yeah.
Well, be advised, you got a group of about 50.
That working?
Yep.
Charging up the hill on the west front, just north of the stairs. They're pushing the wall now. Dismantle the review stand and throwing metal poles at us. Give me DSO! Your nails! DSO! What's the entry? DSO, get up here! 30 seconds up.
On January 6, 2021, a mob of supporters of President Donald Trump attacked the United States Capitol in Washington, D.C. Their goal was to overturn his defeat in the 2020 presidential election. Lawmakers and staff were evacuated, while rioters assaulted law enforcement officers, vandalized property, and occupied the complex.
And there's been a significant escalation in just the last few moments. They have broken through that police line. I am watching as we speak.
A protester is sitting there on the Senate floor where normally the president of
the list, put all those names down, and we start hunting them down one by one.
5 people died because of the events of that day. 138 police officers were injured. It was the most severe assault on the Capitol building in more than 2 centuries, and the most forceful attack on the peaceful transition of power in the history of the American presidency. From lawfare and goat rodeo, this is The Aftermath, a new series to explore the government's response to January 6th and the search for accountability.
A state legislator from West Virginia, Republican.
Okay, I think that we are ready to go with our guest. So,
Maggie, do you have audio on our guest?
I'm
going to try one more time to get him on.
Okay, because I can't have audio while you try.
I'm turning your audio off.
Okay. We're
working on this, folks. Anyway, check out The Aftermath, which is on the old feed of The Report. And we are ready to go, I think, as soon as Maggie nods. And Len Grossman asks the key question, which is how Maggie Feldman-Piltch types with those nails.
Oh my God, I just asked that.
The answer is nobody really knows this, including Maggie, who has never offered a coherent explanation.
What did I never offer?
We're talking about how you type with those nails.
Oh.
It's
literally
a subject nobody knows. You've never explained it coherently.
Because I've never not typed with them.
Yeah, it's like people can learn to do anything. You have somebody to introduce us to, Maggie.
I do, and I've assured them that they should accept the invite and that you, Ben, are turning off camera.
I will turn off the camera as soon as this person shows up on screen. There, maybe he should keep a thumb over the thing so that we don't. Good.
Okay. All right.
Now we should have audio from the guest.
Yes.
Blue Eagle, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Good afternoon.
Welcome to In Lieu of Fun. Maggie, do you want to introduce Blue Eagle, or should we have him introduce himself?
I'm going to give a quick introduction and just talk a little bit about what we're going to talk about.
Okay.
And Blue Eagle will introduce himself. So,
and just to be clear, before we go any further, why are we not showing his face and not revealing his name?
Yeah, we are not showing his face or revealing his name or talking about specifically how many people are in one country or not, or where specifically he or anybody else is from, or specifics about leaving the country or things that are very specifically going on right now, because it's not safe. So whether this was on Lieu of Fun or any electronic device, anything that's not face-to-face and, with people that are really trusted, is just not safe. Not saying that anybody in this conversation.
Yeah, but we're broadcasting. This is available to the general public.
And the purpose of this conversation is, given that effective about 48 hours ago, the United States government has now made it possible for private citizens and organizations to privately sponsor families and people arriving from Afghanistan. I thought, given our experience with resettlement so far, that my friend could talk a little bit about what that's like.
All right.
I'll stop.
So,
my friend, over to you.
So, Blue Eagle, tell us about yourself. Who are you, at whatever level of specificity you're willing to talk about it, and what is your story about leaving Afghanistan and coming to the United States?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Like Mrs. Maggie said, we thank you for letting us to join you this afternoon. And I think if the Mrs. Maggie go ahead and she has all the information, that'd be great.
Okay.
Because I don't want to. I don't know how far we should go with this, and that's why
Okay. All right. So I'll talk a little bit, and you jump in where you want to. We've gotten pretty good at this. We spend a lot of time together. So, and I'll put in the chat for those that are interested, our website. So the organization has a website, and I'll kind of refer to what we have on there. So a friend of mine named Jack, who is a pilot in the Navy, and was deployed to Afghanistan several years ago, and Blue Eagle is one of quite a few other pilots in the Afghan Air Force that Jack trained with and fought with during his deployment, and has, of course, kept in touch with. And so when things took a turn for the worst in Afghanistan, we were like, hey, maybe we should, try and not let terrible things happen to our friends. And we started working on the process of evacuation. And I will talk a little bit about what it was like on our side. And I will defer to my friend to talk kind of generally about what the experience of moving a bunch of people through a war zone is simultaneously. So we worked, it took a lot of tries. We started in early August, and our friends made it out of the country off the lily pads to the United States by Labor Day. So it took about a month, and we used exclusively military aircraft. So that meant we did not charter any planes. And in addition, of course, to all being in the military, in the Afghan military, because they had worked and trained with the American forces, they have American personnel files. So that certainly helps, in the verification process. And in case people have questions about what that's like, I can answer those. And we moved, everybody organized in chalks, which is another way of saying small groups. And they were mixed groups, meaning that it included pilots and family members. So as we talk about the resettlement process and what this experience has been like, please keep in mind, it's not just my one friend who's joining us today, which I'm so grateful for, but it's families. And that means people of all different ages and experiences and abilities. So we have people's parents. We've had, I think, 11 babies. That is a specific number I will share. We've had 11.
11 babies born here? Or?
Yes. We have quite a few pregnancies right now. We have lots and lots of children ranging in age from everywhere you can imagine.
So we're not going to talk specific numbers, but are we talking, if you have 11 babies, you're talking about more than dozens?
We're talking about several
hundred. Hundreds or
we're
thousands?
So specifically, yes, overall, we worked with thousands of people during the evacuation, but this Operation Eagle group that I am at this point almost exclusively focused on is a few hundred.
And it's a few hundred people, all of whom are either pilots or Black Hawk pilots or families of pilots who are trained by your friend Jack.
Yes. And I'm hoping.
And am I being? And you've shared the website of the Operation
and his
Eagle
name
Foundation
is on there, so you can.
And Jack's name is on there.
Yes.
And is identified by the
the
full name. Is there a reason why I shouldn't read that name?
No. It's some of it, to be honest, it's mostly just habit at this point.
Okay. So the Jack in question is John McCain the fourth, right?
Yes.
The son of of Senator McCain.
Yes.
And so this is a group of people that John McCain the fourth, aka Jack McCain, trained, and their families, sometimes reasonably extended families. Is that a fair?
That is, yeah. And I'm hoping that Blue Eagle can talk a little bit about why, there are lots of people in Afghanistan that need help. And aside from, of course, like this professional and personal, very close personal relationship, there is a strategic importance to the pilots of any kind, but especially Black Hawk pilots. And so I will defer to my friend to talk about, like, why is it that pilots are so important?
All right, so that's a great setup. So Blue Eagle, tell us about how you got out. with your family and about what binds together this group of pilots?
Okay, like the Jack, we were deploying the same, and we trained by him on the Black Hawk. It was like a couple years. I was about after 2018, and when the things happen and everything's good or worse, and back in my country, and we talked with the Jack, and I told him, and this is the group of the people, and they are in high risk. The Taliban will not forgive them, and they will hunt everyone down if you not evacuate this group of the people. Basically, for the Black Hawk, who are all trained by the U.S. forces and they qualify, and most of them train the U.S. and they additional training back in my country. And after that, a conversation happened. There was a group of the peoples and the friends here in the United States, and they tried to work on it and to charter their military aircraft to get everyone out with their families. The reason we are a big groups because we are all Black Hawk pilots, and we know we are teams, and the Jack, and we know each other's and the others advisors and the uniforms who work and the Black Hawks, and we trying to reach everyone to bring them involved and help us. And there was the only reason we get a big group of the people out on that serious situation because we can have help of the friends and the Jack and the coordinator that happened. And we got out from the Kabul. We had a few days on Qatar, then we arrived in the United States.
And how what happened to were all of you evacuated, or are some still there?
Some still there, but some numbers still there. But the pilots who trained and who was the mission qualified, and they already get out.
And so, help me out here. You guys, were you all based in Kabul, or were you all over the country?
We were all around the country. We were in the Kandahar, Mes, Kabul, and we were flying all around the country.
And so, are you now all in the same place in the United States, or are you spread out here?
Yeah, most of us are at the same place here.
And how has it been? Has it been welcoming? Has it been, have people here been good to you? What has been the reaction to a large group of Afghan Black Hawk pilots and their families, all showing up at the same time?
There was a group of great people also here who are helping us, and they welcome us very warmly, and it was unbelievable for us and how warm they welcome us here.
So what are you comfortable telling us about where you are? Or, I mean, in general region, specific, how tell us what you can about where this group of pilots has been settled.
We are and yeah.
No, go ahead, Logistical. It's fine. You this is on the website, so you can go ahead.
We are right now in AZ.
In Arizona.
Very nice weather, like back in Kandahar. And no snows, no rains, and that's nice. Yeah, we are in Arizona.
And what has been and like where do they have you living? Are you in on a military base, in a hotel, in housing? What has been done for you for housing?
We're living in a hotel now.
And we're in the process of one of the reasons that I'm back in Arizona right now is that They've been in the hotel for a long time, and housing has been very difficult for a few different reasons. One, there's of course a housing shortage, like there is in most metropolitan areas. Two, with COVID, that adds to the housing shortage. Three, because of when the group arrived, they were here fairly early. They are, of course, again, all here 100% legally on military aircraft. They have legal status, but because the federal government was frankly just so wildly underprepared, there's a many months long delay in receiving important things like social security numbers. And of course, without a social security number, you cannot work in the United States or open a bank account. And of course, those are two things that you need to rent an apartment or live someplace. And on top of that, there's very little money made available to people who are arriving. And so everything is funded through in-kind or financial donations that we've been able to pull together. But I'm very excited that we've found a great development company that works with lots of different kinds of people that, for whatever reason beyond their control, are not a quote strong candidate for a traditional rental application. And so we've found housing for everybody, and that's one of the reasons I'm here now, is to sign that paperwork. And we are now raising money and looking for sponsors to help us cover rent for families as we continue to wait for Social Security numbers so they can start their new jobs.
So, sorry, go ahead, Kate.
Oh, so I just had a quick question. Blue Eagle, I'm very curious. Is there anything that has particularly surprised you about Arizona or your time in the United States? Or in particular, is there anything that lived up to what you were expecting and anything that has been a surprise, good or bad?
And nothing's bad surprised me more than I leave my country. Yeah. That was the bad thing to surprise me, to leave my country and non-planning to be out in. Good things to surprise me here. The Arizona, the same place that I was applying for 10 years, and that's the same. The weather is the same, and that's only the culture, the people are different, and we're trying to use to with the new life here.
Had you spent time in the United States before?
No, I haven't seen United States before.
So this is like one day you guys flew out of Afghanistan and ended up in Arizona, and this was the first time you and your family had ever seen the United States.
Yes, correct.
And are you homesick?
Homesick?
Like, do you miss home?
If the birds and like everything, every human they love their homes, and yes, we are not. If it be not your choice to leave your home, if somebody forced you leave, and you will miss your home.
Yeah.
Of course, you will miss your home.
So to the audience, if you want to get in on the conversation, if you have a question, either for Blue Eagle or for Maggie, this is a good time to flag it in the Ask a Question box. We'll be going to questions shortly. Before we do, I have a few other questions. What are I assume the short-term plan is to get everybody housing, but Blue Eagle, what are your longer-term plans once there's more permanent housing? Are you guys looking for work? What's the next stage of your resettlement, and will you stay in Arizona?
And are you
Yeah,
planning on working as a pilot, or are you looking
yeah.
for work in other ways?
And for first question, we will stay as in Arizona and uh, maybe for a long time. But for the we were still looking for the pilot jobs, and we most of our interested to join the U.S. Armed Force. And we know it's a long process, but we hope to be one day we should step on the U.S. Armed Force. And what did your military did for us? They saved our life, and we want to be good people for this country.
And that's an extremely generous way to describe the way the United States behaved toward Afghanistan over the last 6 months. I'm curious what your feelings on it must be at least a little bit more complicated than that. On the one hand, yeah, the U.S. military got you guys out, but on the other hand, the Afghan military was depending on the U.S. for its long-term survival, and we kind of walked away. What are your feelings toward U.S. policymakers right now?
And for now, I don't know what the policy they're making, but the previous government and the decision they made it, and the Doha argument, there was the wrong direction they pushed it, and finally the Afghan government fall.
Yeah. Can I add one thing, Ben? Just because
Please.
I think so something that I think our group, and when I say our group, I mean all of Operation Eagle. So those of us that were born in the United States and those of us that were not. Something that has been, so I'll speak for myself, but something that has been quite difficult for me and for people born in the U.S. And some of my other friends, I think, is this idea that Americans owe those arriving right now support because it is the United States, quote, fault for ever going to Afghanistan, that going to Afghanistan was a mistake. And for me personally, and I don't want to put Blue Eagle on the spot, so if he wants to say something about this, he can, but these are my views. That hearing that makes me incredibly angry because, as Blue Eagle mentioned, anybody who leaves their home against their own will is going to miss it. The mistake the United States made was not fighting the Taliban. The mistake the United States made was leaving.
Oh, that's what I meant.
No, I know that. I know that's what you meant. I'm watching, but I'm saying other people. It's something that when I talk to people, because part of what I'm doing is going around and trying to talk to people to say, like, hey, we have this incredible group of people who are, many of the men are pilots, but many of the women are lawyers and dentists and teachers, right? And people who need jobs, people who want to go to school, people who are looking for friends. And something that I've heard from some groups of people that I've talked to about, volunteering and stuff is like, oh, they have it really backwards. And it really bothers me.
All right. One person who doesn't have it backwards is Richard Wattenbarger. And sir, the floor is yours.
Hello. I'm curious what proportion of the Afghans that are here speak English, and are there efforts underway to organize English classes for them, and lessons or whatever you're doing?
Yeah, so Blue Eagle, of the group of hundreds that in Arizona that's part of Operation Eagle, how many your English is very good. How many of the group speak good English?
Thank you. And I'm trying to learn English. Still, we all have a class and we're learning the English. They're my third language, and still I'm learning. And most of the pilots here, I think about 70% people, they talk English good, and they train on their English, and they will apply to school on English, and they're good on English. They can solve the problems with talking good, understanding what you're saying.
And what about the families?
Yeah, some of the families view a few numbers and they know the English, but most of the families, uh, the teenagers, and they're basically for the old peoples here and the members, they have problem with the English. They don't know the English. They have some classes here. They learn it.
And have there been classes set up for them, or is language training something that really needs to happen?
They have some classes here. This teach by the volunteers and the people participates. They're learning every day. My kids learning the English every day. They learn a lot of words and since they got there.
Yeah, they do.
All right. Christopher Argyris, the floor is yours.
Hello, Blue Eagle. Thank you for your service to your country and welcome to America. My question is, now that the U.S. and NATO is out of Afghanistan, what is your message? How can we support? What can American people do, given the Taliban government, to support the Afghan people in Afghanistan and also to support Afghan refugees around the world?
Thank you. That's a good question. The one thing we want is that the U.S. government to never recognize these tourist governments like a government. They force it, and there was a somebody mentions because the U.S. forces, Afghan forces rely more on the U.S. forces when they withdraw out, and there was a lack of there were a lot of lack of the logistics, and that's why the government fall. And the one thing we want the U.S. government do not help the Taliban governments to it show for the world for the other tourists to say, okay, we should force them shut the government down. They're elected by the peoples and they break the tourists on powers, and that would be an example for other tourists on the whole world, and they will raise up and they will say, okay, why we are not fighting to fall these governments, and we will be in charge of any governments on the world. And that's not only for the Afghans, so the governments fall and the tourists come and take the control of the country. If it be an example for other tourists, if you go to Africa and the middle of Asia, this example will be that will bring the more trade on the world, and it will force the for other countries like India and others around Afghanistan, and in the long term they will trade and United States and other allies in the Europe as well. If all the government they say the Taliban are good and they recognize them as a government, there will be an example for other tourists to fight and to control the other governments around the world.
But there are, the human rights and World Aid Program officials are suggesting that 1 million people could be facing starvation. How should the U.S. and other governments, NATO governments and other governments think about aid in the context of non-recognition? It's very hard to feed people without some on-the-ground partner to work with.
I think there's another ways that they had the people like by the UN, the others, and I know there's very limited access the people have right now in the country because of the freeze and the monies and things like that. But at the same time, the Taliban need to force by the U.S. government, so they should accept the human rights and the education of the girls and the kids. They should let them go to school, and that's not only food the Afghan people need it right now. They need to go to the girls need to go to school, the kids and the people need the free to speech and free to talk, and they come in the middle of the night, they're pulling the people out and kill them. And that's not the Afghan people right now. They don't need only food now to give them the food to they survive. There is more threat and in the long term to threat the Afghan people.
Ben, you're muted.
Sorry, here Itamar Levior, the floor is yours.
Hi, Blue Eagle. Thank you very much for joining us today. I want to know what are your kids up to? How are they dealing with the move? Are they currently going to school? Are they making new friends?
They're making the new friends. They are the age of 3 and 2 years, and they are not going to school yet, and they are not the age of going to school. The others, family members who are the age of going to school, but they are looking for the process to get them to the schools. I hope it can happen soon.
So I have a question for Maggie. How did you get involved with this?
I made the terrible mistake of going to Georgetown Security Studies program and becoming friends with Jack in graduate school. But
a lot of people are friends
a lot
with
of people
Jack
can claim that.
McCain.
So the first thing
a lot of people are friends with Jack McCain without having spent the last 6 months resettling refugees in Arizona. How did this become a big part of your life?
That's a good question. So I was on August 14th, I was on an airplane, a 1-hour airplane ride from Boston to Washington, D.C. as, the reports of the kind of formal fall of the government came out. And I do something I almost never do, which is bought the internet on an airplane. Because I think it's wildly overpriced, and how safe is it really? And I bought it so that I could text Jack and be like, hey, how are you doing? Because to say that Jack's service and time in Afghanistan is a significant part of who he is and really important to him would be a wild understatement. It's like 90% of his personality in the best way. I also have a parent who served in Afghanistan a few times, many times before I was born. And I have a little brother who's a Marine. And, I'm a person in the world with eyes and ears and the ability to read and think. And so I messaged him and he was like, it's not good. I was like, I agree, it's not good. We should maybe try to do something. And he's like, I agree, but what does a person do? And I was like, I'm not really sure, but I know somebody who does crisis response and kidnap and hostage rescue professionally. So we could ask him. So we made a group chat. And really not knowing what was going to happen. And this is what happened. I think to me, there's two, aside from the fact that these are people that I, of course, care a lot about, and people that my friend really cares a lot about, that matters. The two other kind of big motivators for me, one is very policy and one is very personal. And I saw somebody in the chat mention that, Pakistan and China and Russia could, provide aid if they were so inclined. And I will, circle back to that and allow Blue Eagle to comment. But the United States version of helping and Pakistan or China's or Russia's version of helping are very different. And so I'm not interested in waiting for China to do what I believe the United States government should be doing. So there's that. The other piece that is very personal to me is that I spend more time than I'd like to admit thinking about what my life and my family's life would be like if they hadn't left where they were from, somewhat successfully and in many cases wildly unsuccessfully in the 1930s and 40s. And I, look at the United States' active decision to not engage in World War II and to not offer safe refuge to people who needed it as one of the greatest sins of our country. And I don't know that there are many times in your life where the universe provides you the opportunity to help someone really directly. And I would not be able to live with myself if, you know, you can't, there's not a choice here. Do or do not.
So that was 6 months ago?
Yeah. It's been a little while.
All right. So Blue Eagle, question from Francine. Have you been in contact with family and friends you left behind in Afghanistan, and how are they doing under the new regime?
Yeah, I have contacts and with my families, my friends back in Afghanistan. They have a hard time and with the new regimes and the terrorist regimes. They force the peoples who work with the previous governments and who was in the uniforms. They're looking for them, and they kill a lot of them. They continuously kill them, and it's continue. We have in contact with the friends, with the families. Yes.
And are people are people trying to leave, or are the family and friends that you have there mostly committed to staying?
Some of them trying to leave, but they are looking for a way to how can they leave. Some of them they want to stay there, and they're looking for how can hide from the Taliban. At the same time, they're feeding their families.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we have time for a few more questions. If people have more questions, Kate, are you? Do you have additional stuff?
Yeah, I guess I'm curious. You know, I don't know what your life was like leading up to kind of your evacuation, and how much fear you were in before you were evacuated and left. Um, are you less afraid? Like, are you feeling like, are you sleeping? Are you like able to like relax and feel safe? Or is it still kind of a process of adjusting to a new place and from everything that you went through over the past couple of months and years?
The thing is not worse as it was 2 months ago. Still, my mind is processing the new things, but yeah, we are not sleeping well as we doing before, and everyone was unplanned trips, and on that risky situation we evacuate, and still we have some like cannot sleep well, and the things we remember from what happened and help everyone here, of course.
And what can you tell us about, um, you know, you guys were an incredibly valuable asset to the Afghan government. I mean, people who are trained to fly Black Hawk helicopters, but there are also the helicopters themselves. And I'm curious what steps you may have taken to prevent Black Hawk helicopters from falling into the hands of the Taliban.
I think the Taliban, they don't have the Black Hawk to fly. Those aircraft are not flyable, and the flyable aircraft, some of them move to the Uzbekistan. They fly out of the countries on the 15th August, and some helicopter left behind, they're not flyable. Just only a few of them, they still have the maintenance issues, but the Taliban forced some of the pilots to fly that. They just they're doing some shows, the air shows, and to show on the TVs, and they are using Black Hawk. And they are not they will not be usable in 2-3 months later.
So how many Black Hawks were there before the change of regime, and how many usable ones are there now?
You can say approximately, Blue Eagle.
Yeah,
was,
we don't need the.
Yeah, well, approximately more than 30. But because of the BDA and a lot of the maintenance issue, we have them back 6 months before the government fall. There was only 8 of them flyable, but a few of them they fly out of the country. More than 4 of them fly out of the country. Also, a few of them they still on the country, but they have the maintenance issue. They don't have it, and they force the pilots to fly in the bad aircraft and just take off and landing.
So you realistically, the Taliban will not have usable Black Hawks or Black Hawk pilots after a month or two from now.
If it depends, if they get the help from the other country, like the China and the Pakistan or the other country, to help them to fix or do the exchange the parts for the fixing the Black Hawk, they will be useful for the Taliban.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're
Right, this
looking
is
for a
not
way
an event.
right now.
I'm sorry?
You're looking right now, the Taliban looking, because they have the dozen of the helicopters. If the one is broke, they can use the part from that one to put the other one to fix it. They're looking to get the help from the China or for Russia and the Pakistan, the other countries, and they're interested to help them. I hope
I
it's not
see.
happening.
So, question from Greg: how did you become a pilot? And do you miss flying now?
I think everyone has something secret on hers to be a pilot. And I started flying back in 2010. And after I graduated, and my father have a previous military background, so I joined the Afghan Air Force and became a pilot. I flew a lot of different aircraft. And the Black Hawk was my last aircraft I was flown. I flew the Russian and the U.S. boat airframe.
All right, Richard, you have another question.
Yeah. So I'm curious. I know this is traumatic for all of you, and I'm wondering: are there mental efforts underway to provide mental health services, counseling for the refugees, and are you able to find people who are who actually specialize in dealing with counseling people who've been through this sort of trauma?
So, Blue Eagle, I'll answer a little. I'll answer a little bit about this just because it's a programming thing. There are efforts underway. We are incredibly fortunate and deeply grateful to Cigna and Evernorth, who have really incredibly stepped up to ensure healthcare services, not just for our group, but so generously to all arrivals in the state. A special shout out to Michelle Berg and Tim Wentworth for really making that possible. And they are working with us to finalize another partnership for mental health care services. I will say that one of the challenges in this particular situation is that it's been many decades, since while people arrive to the United States from other places every day, something that Blue Eagle mentioned and that is so important to remember and so very different about kind of the quote typical new arrivals is that this was an unplanned journey. And this was an unplanned journey by people who would much prefer, in most cases, to be back where they were, and dare I say quite bluntly, beating the ever-loving shit out of the Taliban. So there are not a ton of people that have been through even something remotely similar, right? Leaving a war zone, unplanned, et cetera, et cetera. So there are not people that specialize in this, but there is, trauma-informed care, absolutely. And I will say that broadly, refugee resettlement agencies are wildly unprepared. They've never seen anything like this, and they don't know what they're doing, and there are really negative implications of that. And we are so grateful to our partners for helping us fill the gaps.
Can I ask a question really quickly? I think that's great. And I think all of that is wonderful. I had a more direct follow-up before the mental health question, which is just how important are Black Hawk helicopters in the range of things that might have been left behind? Like, as in, are these going to become like one of the things that like our intelligence officers will devote resources to tracking Black Hawk parts around the globe that are being traded by Pakistan and China? Like, now that they already aren't, but like,
I don't know that we're in a position to totally know that,
right,
or go there.
I was just trying to know, like,
they're super, let's say they're super important.
Yes.
A Black Hawk helicopter is a big deal weapon system, and having an operational Black Hawk in the hands of an enemy force is a very bad thing.
Yes. Okay.
That's, I think,
good question for context.
It's not like having an aircraft carrier in the hands of an enemy force.
But it's or a nuclear weapon. Like I understand.
It's a major
but where is it in the scale? Good question.
It's a major league weapon system.
Great, thank you.
Yes, good question.
Yeah, the question you're asking about the China giving the parts, we know that the China, they don't have the part of the Black Hawk, but they can do the exchange the part. Like if they have 30, for example, if they have 30 aircraft broke, they can make it 10 flyable. So exchanging the part, if the one aircraft broke one part, we can exchange it to get the bad aircraft, bring it to fix the other aircraft. This is the way if the Taliban help by the other. Yes.
So basically, there'll be like a bartering, basically, to get a part of other types of helicopters back to China or things like that, like to try to kind of trade and like get the parts in.
No, I think what he's saying is if you have 30 helicopters and you have Chinese expertise, you can make 10 of them operational. And
yes, correct.
And that's and you know, China, if it wants to devote energy to studying Black Hawk helicopters and replicating parts, it can spend some time on that too. But in the short term, it definitely has the technological capability to service one by scrapping another.
I just didn't know how. I guess my question, Blue Eagle, is like how interchangeable Black Hawk helicopter parts are with other helicopters.
That's not changeable with other helicopters. And the bad thing happened, the evacuation happened so quickly. Some of the things left behind, that's very useful. Like some of the document for the Black Hawk and how can do the exchange the part. Like one part is not working and that's not flyable anymore. They can use part of this aircraft to make the other aircraft flyable. That's the thing. That's why I mentioned that.
All right, Christopher, you get the penultimate question today.
All right. Hello again, Blue Eagle. So my question, it could be personal. It could be sort of your friends and family, what you thought. But what was the expectation about how long the U.S. Or NATO would stay in Afghanistan? Was this different between you who were working directly with the military and your friends and family who maybe didn't have any connection to the military? And did you expect when the withdrawal started that at least Bagram Air Base would be maintained after the withdrawal of U.S. and NATO forces?
That's a good question. The first thing, and we are not expecting the U.S. forces and fight alongside with us like 20 more years, but we're expecting the U.S. to help like the Afghan forces to to fight against the group of the tourists, the Taliban, the ISIS, the others, all the tourist group back in my country. But the Afghan government fall by the lack of the morale, not by lack of the money logistic things. When the US make a deal with the Taliban in Doha, like they're saying a lot of things, okay, we will, if the Afghan government not make a deal with the Taliban and we will withdraw. And when they shut it down, the Bagram airfield, it was a good, a clear signal for the Afghan government, the US are leaving. But still the Afghan government rely on the coalition forces. They will get a help to survive. And by the time the Taliban realized the US is gone, all assets are gone, there will be no more airstrike and no night operations. They said there's a good time to invade the other tourists from the Pakistan border, the other side. They comes and they start attacking the big cities, like the big compounds. They started taking the provinces. They took one province as the big compound. They took their weapons and they distribute for the others, and they input more peoples, and that's why they make bigger and bigger. And when the one or two provinces fall, the morale of the government goes very down. And I remember how the morals was down because of not political solution for this war. And for the logistical side, also the Afghan forces, they have some lack of the logistic material as well. And after they make a deal with the Taliban in Doha, they were limited the resupplying for the Afghan forces. There was another reasons, and the Afghan government fall. We are not expecting the U.S. Forces fight alongside with us, and we fight alongside with the U.S. forces for the 20 years. If you go and read on the Google search how many Afghans armed force killed in 20 years, it's more than 67,000 officially confirmed. And if the U.S. give money, the Afghans give a life to fight against the terrorists. But in some parts, they fail to provide much political support and logistical support that the Afghan government needed. And when they are not providing that, the morals come down and the Afghan government fall.
Okay, last question from Patricia. And Patricia, I'm sorry, my efforts to bring you on screen have failed, but I will read the question. Are there enough personnel helping to process for the refugees' social security numbers and other needs? Is the process working effectively or too slowly, and are too many people crowded into a large space? Who's feeding people? So, Maggie, this may be better directed at you, but how is, to both of you, for your thoughts, how is the process working and who's taking responsibility for it?
And for Operation Eagle or for all overall?
No, more generally, I mean, to the extent you have visibility on it through Operation Eagle, like, how is the U.S. refugee resettlement process working here?
Terribly. If I picked one word, it'd be terrible. And I despite my, highly emotional way of communicating, this whole experience has been quite difficult because, as somebody who has a lot of respect and love and admiration for the United States government and our institutions, I've watched it fail in so many ways. And I love institutions, and there they are not doing the thing. Nobody really knows who's in charge. And the best way I could summarize it is that, recently, as I mentioned at the top of the hour, this whole idea of private citizens and organizations sponsoring refugee families, which in theory is wonderful and warm, and we should be doing that on an individual basis.
But it also shouldn't be necessary.
It shouldn't be necessary. It's happening because our government has failed. Our institutions have failed. We have Operation Eagle has the means and the motivation to get everybody that we need that is in the United States here. We have the means and motivation to get the people that are not in the United States here. And yet we can't get people off military bases. And it is because they're waiting for literally physically waiting for their turn in line. I've been to some of the bases to try and pick our friends up and said, like, I will pay for their flight. Like, no. There are, I would say that the Operation Eagle group is in a particular kind of predicament because they arrived early. They arrived before the Expo Center was set up at Dulles. How do I know this? Because I live primarily in Washington, D.C., and as Ben knows and Blue Eagle knows, we were basically all living together for a while. And so we had the experience of, quite frankly, being first. And so I have learned so much about, and so has Blue Eagle and all of us alongside each other, learned so much about the immigration process because we've been here, quote, the longest. We've been here first. We were the first group to get state IDs. And that was mostly because we were like, well, why can't we? And there have been, a number of people and or specific offices that have done incredible work along the way. Senator Mark Kelly's office, his immigration team in particular, both in the district.
Notice the Arizona theme here, guys.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure that I would extend that grace to all parts of Arizona, but Mark Kelly's office.
But there's certain Arizona families are outperforming.
Absolutely. And I will absolutely mention that in just a moment. So Mark Kelly's
You're going to have to wrap quickly.
Okay, his immigration team deserves more credit than they're getting. And I will say that Ambassador Cindy McCain, who is now the U.S. ambassador to the UN Food and Agriculture Program, watch the fuck out, China. This woman could build a refugee camp in 30 seconds.
So tell me something, and just say you can't answer if you can't answer. Where are you right now?
I'm in my friend Jack's house, his mom's house.
In Arizona, joining us today, Maggie from the house of Cindy and Jack McCain, Blue Eagle from an undisclosed hotel location somewhere in Arizona. Thank you both for joining us. If you want to support this effort, the resettlement effort with respect to the Blue Eagle families and others, I have shared the link before. It does not let me share it twice, so I'm going to add a period to the end of it. Don't include the period if you click on it, because it may not work. These are great future Americans and great Afghans. And Blue Eagle, it's a pleasure to meet you. And thank you for joining us on the show.
Yeah, and thank you for all your service and your help.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
We will be back tomorrow. I am not sure who the guest will be.
I'm hoping it's going to be Radley Belko to talk about his recent 1.5-year reporting project that just was published in The Intercept on basically a very interesting kind of backlash that happened in a small prison and police district. And so we'll talk about that tomorrow.
That will be 22 hours and 52 minutes from now. And until then, Maggie?
We can't have fun. So,
doesn't someone else...
We can help people resettle in the United States. I mean...
Hell yeah, we can.
We do have awesome new Americans to look forward to, like Blue Eagle.
We can. That we can still have.